All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL props video. Give me a touch on the top prop bets for the Sunday games. Let's go ahead and get into it. And well, because the Steelers and Bills game got moved back, we only have two games on the slate. So we got the Green Bay Packers versus the Dallas Cowboys, and then we have the Rams versus the Detroit Lions. So the first game, the Packers are 7-point dogs, which in a way I do find strange. Like, I don't know, for me, the outcome of this game is the Packers kind of win big, honestly, or they lose pretty big. Like, either they show up and beat the Cowboys or they don't show up and just get absolutely crushed by the Cowboys. We have seen the Packers now, and the Cowboys for that matter. The Packers have really gotten beat maybe 3 times this season: Tampa Bay, Detroit, Minnesota. Every other game they've beaten themselves, and we have seen when they don't beat themselves, they're a pretty good team. Now we look at the Cowboys, though. The Cowboys are a team that they haven't really had that many close games. They've either been blowing out teams or getting blown out themselves. So that's kind of why I phrased it that way. I don't want to come off as like Packers bias. It's just these two teams have been strange this year. They really have been. On a per week basis, kind of been difficult to figure out. For the Packers, it's because they've been pretty banged up. So Jair probably looking like he could sit, which obviously would really help CeeDee Lamb probably have a good game, as well as Cooks. AJ Dillon, he's going to be doubtful. So we're probably going to be looking at Aaron Jones to have a big game. Christian Watson currently questionable with a hamstring injury. Now he has been able to practice a little bit more, but that probably gives a lot of Cowboys fans a sigh of relief. They probably all remember the breakout game for Christian Watson last year, the one that I predicted. That felt pretty good last year. Looking at the Cowboys, guys, they are a little bit healthier. I mean, they're pretty much good to go, especially in terms of offensive weapons. So they'll probably be a little bit easier to figure out. Let's go in and jump into the prop bets for this game. So looking at the Packers, I do find the prop bets that we're getting for them to be kind of interesting. Like Jaden Reed for under fantasy score, that'd be one that, I don't know, most of you guys would probably think that wouldn't be the case, but you can see the average sportsbook line is favoring the under at 11.67. So that's why it's being heavily favored for the under. And let's talk through maybe why that could be. So first and foremost, Christian Watson could be back. That would definitely play a big factor. Jaden Reed only played 60% of the snaps. Now, Romeo Doubs is someone that went to the hospital during the game last week. And so they're just so banged up at the receiver position. It is very difficult to know what's going to happen. But Wicks is back as well. He's kind of the number one, especially if Watson sits. Who would have thought we'd be saying that at the start of the season? Wicks was like the one player I was talking down from this receiving unit. And it turns out it's probably their best receiver. And we'll see. Maybe Watson comes back and opens up the field. All in all, like, sure, I could see, I guess, betting the under. At the same time, he's been awesome, right? He has been extremely good. And if they're going to compete in this game, and I know Vegas is insane, so, but I don't know, this one more feels like one I'm going to stay away from. Sure, I'll put it in probably a 6 slip bet, maybe like a game stacking slip, but I'm not going to like hammer it home individually because I personally don't feel good about it. Same thing with Aaron Jones for his receiving yards. Now, I will call out on PrizePicks. I guess I'd be fine betting the under. On Underdog, I do think that this one makes a lot of sense for betting the over. So the thing with it is, it's like Aaron Jones should play 80% of the snaps in this game. And I say that because, well, AJ Dillon's going to be out, and really, this might be the last hurrah for Aaron Jones as a Green Bay Packer. You can choose to run him into the ground in this game. This could be your last game of the season, right? Just like last week. Could have been their last game of the season. Just like the week before, could have been their last game of the season. Now, AJ Dillon was playing in that game. He's not going to play in this game. So again, I think we're probably going to see him get about 80% of the snaps again. So I personally want to be looking at more of his overs than his unders. And that's why I say a better bet on Underdog where the line's 3 yards shorter. And again, like Aaron Jones over fantasy score, I don't know if we need to target that. Maybe we're getting some rushing attempts props. Maybe we get some rush yards props. Dallas defense is good though, right? So it's really what can Matt LaFleur scheme up. Luke Musgrave, I don't want to touch simply because Tucker Kraft has been the tight end that a lot of people are hoping Luke Musgrave would be. He has been really good. If it wasn't for Laporta, I think you could easily say he's like the best rookie tight end maybe in a while, especially during the stretch. He has been impressive is the point here, guys. And that's why we saw last week that Luke Musgrave did not play that many snaps, only 15% of the snaps. Now that could come up. He was returning from an injury. Again, this is the tough part about the Packers, but all in all, Tucker Kraft has proven that he needs to be on the field. He is a reliable target. And I hate to say it, guys, kind of look at the trend as to when people thought Jordan Love started to play better. And I phrased it that way because I really think, watching these games, it was really on most his pass catchers most of the time. A lot of the announcers would like dog on Jordan Love. Where is he throwing it? Why is he throwing it there? I'm like, the receiver ran the wrong route, or, the chemistry just wasn't there. And I say that because Luke Musgrave was extremely frustrating. He was open so much, those two could not connect. And literally, since the Chargers game, a lot of people have been hyping up Jordan Love. And so honestly, I think Tucker Kraft being there has helped Jordan Love look better because he can trust him. He's more reliable. And so that's my long way of saying I could get behind Luke Musgrave for under 18.5 receiving yards. Now that'd be a bet on him still only playing about 20% of the snaps. And then if you do that, I would almost suggest betting the over for Tucker Kraft's receiving yard because he has been very productive there. So if he's going to be playing 80% of the snaps again, that to me is going to be pretty darn appealing. And guys, I know I'm spending a lot of time on the Packers. It's just the team that I know the most. I'm really not trying to be biased. I'm just trying to give you guys the best breakdown I can possible. And a lot of people have, appreciated that because it's been pretty darn profitable thus far this season. Part of the reason as to why is because Jordan Love has been pretty much undervalued by the industry throughout this whole season. There's like 1 week in which he let us down, and that was against the Raiders when the whole team just did not show up. So what do we do with him this week against the Dallas Cowboys? Now, I want to call out fantasy score wise, guys. If we look at like the trends, and I'll show you guys it, Jordan Love was still able to get his over fantasy scores into maybe 3 of the last 4 games. On paper, were actually kind of difficult. The Bears defense have been playing so much better. Vikings was the easy matchup. The Panthers defense, they're a defense that has made quarterbacks struggle to put up fantasy score. And then Tampa Bay, a little bit hit or miss, but he was still able to get the over. Against New York Giants, we know that game was just an ugly game for the Packers. Just a lot of mistakes there. So again, a lot of the Packers game really depends on if they're playing sloppy. But you guys know we've been hammering this Jordan Love fantasy score prop this whole season. Why quit now? So I'm going to be running that one out. Let's see if there's any other ones I like. Again, Dobbs went to the hospital, guys. Kind of a scary situation. I don't know if I want to be targeting that one. The one that I like to roll with probably Jordan Love is going to be Wicks for over 2.5 receptions. Like that is just like a sticker shock to me. Again, I kind of think he's their receiver number 1. And then also I want to call it, we do have an Aaron Jones rush attempts prop as well. And so let's take a peek at those two. Again, I know I'm spending too much time on this. I know some people are going to hate on this, but kind of is what it is. Wicks, guys, he has just been so impressed. Okay. That game against Carolina, got injured at half, didn't return. Let's just see how many snaps he played in that game. 38, well on his way to getting that over. The game against the Giants, again, just an ugly game. So, I mean, I don't get what's going on here. Yes, Watson being back should eat into probably everyone's workload. Dobbs is going to see less playing time. Reed might see less playing time. Wicks might see less playing time. Bo Melton might see less playing time. But all in all, I think it's just going to be 5% here, 5% there. Really, it's just wherever Matt LaFleur sees that he can scheme something open. But all in all, I just don't see how Wicks isn't playing at least 70% of the snaps. Let's put it this way, at least 55% of the snaps. And if he does that, he should be able to get over 2.5 receptions. That to me, I know the data doesn't like it only 52%, but that's one of my favorite ones on the day, probably on the week that we have gotten. Again, I don't like the fact that the data is kind of disagreeing there, but all in all, I think that's a good one. And then Aaron Jones, over rush attempts, I do think he's going to get the over. I mean, you look at the way they've been able to win the last few games, 22, 20, 21 rush attempts. They're going to continue to do that. Now, Dallas is definitely going to try to shut them down. Don't get me wrong. Dallas is a great defense. Heck, if Dallas wasn't playing my Packers, I'd be hyping them up as the team to probably win the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that can't happen, but I do like Aaron Jones for over 16.5 rush attempts. And again, guys, I apologize for spending too much time on the Packers. Let's jump on into the Dallas Cowboys. And part of the reason why is that there's so many weird nuances that have went on with the Packers thus far this season, injuries and whatnot. I kind of have to break it down to depth that much. Whereas with the Cowboys, it's much more simple, I would say. Like Cooks here, he is a little bit hit or miss. Like with Cooks and with Ferguson, it really does feel like you're choosing one or the other to have a good game. And so right now the data is telling us Jake Ferguson, maybe we want to favor him for over receiving yards and maybe not Cooks for his fantasy score. Now, what is this telling us though? This is telling us that on underdog, this is going to be a much better bet. So that being said, I don't feel the need to force this into a bet on PrizePicks where it's going to be, we have to adjust for the receptions and whatnot, but it's going to be a better bet on underdog where underdog is seemingly overvaluing him. Another thing here as well, it's like CeeDee Lamb, seemingly a pretty good one. I mentioned Jair Alexander could potentially be out. Now, Valentine and Ballantyne, the two cornerbacks for the Packers, I think have been impressive, but I've also said a bunch over the past year and a half, I would make a strong argument that CeeDee Lamb is the best receiver in the league. Now, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, obviously we have those guys, but the point still remains that CeeDee Lamb is a stud. And this is pretty much betting on Dak not to have a bad game. So if you are betting CeeDee Lamb for over his fantasy score, which I am perfectly fine with, I would say then you would also have to run out Dak for over his fantasy score. To me, that's just a correlation. So we are seeing that Jalen Tolbert receiving yards prop is somewhat of a prop that is popping up, guys. Tolbert has been playing about 40% of the snaps though. And the issue with this prop is that it's really how will Dallas choose to attack the Packers? Will it be on the ground game or will it be in the pass? And again, I phrase it that way because the Packers defense is terrible. And so if they choose to do it via the ground game, Tolbert probably not going to get his over receiving yards. If they do it via the passing game, probably will get his over receiving yards. And so it definitely is an interesting one. I'm just probably staying away from that. Let's see here. Rush attempts is definitely an interesting one there for Tony Pollard. Again, they could definitely choose just to attack the Packers via the ground game. And 15 to me does seem to be a little bit too low in a game in which Vegas is saying that this is going to be a 7-point spread. That tells me game flow wise, they're going to probably rush the football with Tony Pollard a decent amount. And we have seen games thus far this season in which running backs have been able to dominate against the Packers. Again, it really comes down to how Mike McCarthy is going to choose to attack the Packers. It could be on Tony Pollard. That's kind of my way of saying if I'm doing a Tony Pollard prop, I'm not probably going to do too many receiver props for Dallas or Jake Ferguson for that matter. And my biggest worry as a Packers fan is that like Jake Ferguson is going to feed former Wisconsin Badger. You know, there's that narrative. A lot of people probably don't know that part. Yeah, the Mike McCarthy narrative, the Packers going against Dallas and Dallas, you know, a lot of awesome games there and whatnot. But this is kind of a little fun narrative there as well. The reason why I think Ferguson could have a good game is literally he's the type of player that is going to give the Packers defense a lot of trouble. Or over the middle, the linebackers committing to stop the run a little bit too much. Like, I would probably favor his over receiving yards as well. From there, I don't see that many other good ones here for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I do think this one's kind of funny. Rico Dwaddle, I can't say his name. I apologize. I find it interesting that we're getting a fantasy score prop on him. So if you guys really think the Packers are going to get blown out, that the 7-point spread is going to be right, this is a good prop bet for you. That's pretty much what you're betting here. I know we can't bet on the spread, money line, and whatnot on PrizePicks. This is kind of your way of doing that because obviously if it's a blowout, he's going to be someone that gets more run in this game. And so now let's move on into the next game. Another game that I think is really fun to watch and also break down. A very high scoring game, 52 or so for the over and under, 3-point spread. Obviously you have the Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff narrative and whatnot. A lot of fun there. The issue that I have with Detroit is the Laporta news, and you also have Khalif Raymond out. That's making Detroit much more difficult. And if I had to pick an upset as well, I'd probably favor the Rams, who have been very impressive. Both the Green Bay Packers and the LA Rams have two of the youngest teams to ever make the playoffs. I know the Packers are the youngest team to ever make the playoffs. I would wonder if like the Rams would have been if it wasn't for the Packers. Very impressive what they've been able to do, and the offense has looked great. Do need to note Tyler Higbee also a questionable tag as well. So let's go ahead and break down both teams. I want to start out with the Rams. And so unfortunately what we're going to see is we're not getting that many good prop bets. I do think part of that is going to be to Higbee being questionable, although we're getting props from him, so they're expecting him to play. I also do think it's noteworthy to call it this prop. Again, another one that I would say on underdog, a pretty big edge there, a 2-point difference there. And at 20, we can see that is clearly the outlier. So Matthew Stafford for under 20 for a fantasy score on underdog is similarly one that is popping up. Now, I do find this line for DeMarcus Robinson to be an extremely interesting one. Robinson is someone that no doubt has been playing pretty darn well lately. I think that's a pretty good indication of that is the fact that he didn't play in the game against the Niners. Let me rephrase that, guys. Didn't play much in that game against the Niners, like same as Puka there. I think that's a good tell. We're going to use the Giants game, though, to kind of show you guys the snaps that has been occurring. So, yeah, he is someone that is basically not leaving the field. And with that, Tutu Atwell, he's not seeing the field at all. And this is what we like about the Rams, guys, is that it's a heavy snap share concentration. Kyren Williams, Puka, two of the players that, we've been on the whole season, hyping them up in best ball drafts and whatnot, helped us a lot in DFS. I think every single week, Kyren was a player that I was saying he arguably should be the highest priced running back, and he never was. So I probably do want to chase those two players a little bit, but all in all, the data is not telling us to do that. And I will say this right here, where Puka is being favored for the under fantasy score and Cooper Kupp is being favored for the over, I would say that is a coin flip. And so if you like one over the other, I'm kind of okay with it, guys. Same thing with Matthew Stafford for over his fantasy score. Like, I'm kind of okay with it. The only constraint that we have with those types of prop bets is what to do with Kyren Williams. Then we're basically like, this is a high total game, right? It's just who's going to be scoring the touchdowns. Is it going to be Kyren Williams scoring 2 rushing touchdowns? Is it going to be Matthew Stafford throwing the football extremely well and getting a bunch of touchdowns? And so that is the biggest issue that we're having with the Rams. Personally, I know I just kind of want to ride the hot hand, if you will. Probably want to be looking at some Kyren Williams props. And so like, I really don't mind the rush attempts props for Kyren Williams. The offense has worked through Kyren this season. It just has. And so if you want to do fantasy score, you could, but I really expect him to get a heavy dosage of the workload. The only way I don't see him getting over 19.5 rushing attempts is really if the Rams fall behind early. Even still, there's a couple games, I think it was against Cleveland, maybe Baltimore, where he didn't have that many rush attempts, and then they just, boom, second half, they gave him like 10 straight carries, did fine. Maybe that was Carolina, I don't know, whatever. The point is, they figured out that they need to give him the football. So I do like this one. Again, I personally think the Rams are going to win this game. I don't know, I just had a tough time getting behind Detroit this year. So that's probably my favorite prop bet for them. Let's go ahead and jump on into Detroit. And so, guys, my assumption is that Sam Laporta is going to sit in this game. Again, that's going to be a big hit against this offense. And not only that, the backup tight end is also out. Okay. Now, Brock Wright has played for them enough. Like, he's going to be good to go. He's going to be the starting tight end. It's just noteworthy there that they're going to be, and again, like, Brock Wright's fine, but they're going to be down their 2 best tight ends. And so definitely interesting there, right? They're also going to be down Khalif Raymond, who had kind of been their receiver number 3 for the most part. Jameson Williams has tried to get into that. He's going to be good to go in this game. He is a little bit too hit or miss, difficult to trust. But that being said, he is going to be forced to play a lot of snaps. You know, he is someone that basically has been playing like 52, 66% of the snaps. I would imagine that with Raymond out, he's going to play about 70% of the snaps. That's my assumption. St. Brown's not going to leave the field. We're going to see a lot of Josh Reynolds, and heck, we might see a little bit more of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery together. And so, like, to me, I actually could get behind really these 2 props if you like the Detroit Lions to win. And I hate the fact that the data is telling us to do the opposite there. So all in all, I see those 2 prop bets at 2 that you should stay away from. The data really likes the under on them. I get why the line's there, and I also get why the data is telling us to bet the under. To me, I'm just reading that as let's just stay away from it. Also, though, I will say I hate this one as well. So this is pretty much saying David Montgomery's going to score a touchdown. The Lions are going to win. And so it's tough to get behind that because it's just, man, the snaps have not been there for David Montgomery. It's a tough matchup as well. Now, I know he's been able to crush this. That's pretty much betting on him getting a few receptions or getting a rushing touchdown. It's very difficult to bank on getting a rushing touchdown. And Jahmyr Gibbs has just looked so good, much more dynamic in the passing game. I would rather trust him, but we're seeing the data is really liking the under fantasy score for a lot of the Lions. And now that I'm like looking this over in depth, maybe that's why I have like a little bit of a bias against the Lions for this game. Maybe that is why I'm liking the Rams a little bit more, because all the prop bets for the Lions, we're seeing that the day is kind of telling us to bet the under. And man, yeah, I don't know if I like really any of these prop bets now that we're going through it. Like, they all kind of, like, I would have been fine with these 2, but that's pretty much it. Interest. So let's take a peek at Underdog, and then I'll give you guys a bet of the day for PrizePicks. All right, so guys, looking at it, Underdog wise, I don't love these ones too much, and the reason I added in Kyren for over 2.5 receptions is, one, this has a 54% chance that Underdog wise, like, that's a good prop bet. Not available on PrizePicks because, well, it's a good prop bet. PrizePicks is typically faster to respond. And then these were just the 2 best prop bets that we were getting on the board. Again, Underdog is valuing these 2 players about 2 points higher or so than what PrizePicks is valuing them. So all in all, I don't love these 2, but the data does, and so that's fine. Like, I don't have to love them. Data's saying they're good. Let's do that. I will say I'm probably getting a little bit too adventurous for the PrizePicks slip. We'll show you guys that right now. So, like, guys, this is definitely, I think, a little bit of a biased one. Like, it really is. You have Wicks, who I just hyped up a bunch. Jordan Love, who I was correct about this whole season when people were basically thinking I was an idiot hyping up Jordan Love. This one, Aaron Jones, I think the offense is going to run through him. If you guys didn't want to use that, I'm fine with it. Same thing with Kyren. Again, Kyren is someone that was hyping up the whole season, so probably some bias there. You have a Badger Bellinger, and then you have Tucker Kraft on, who I was also saying get him more snaps over Luke Musgrave. So again, very much could be a bias build here, and I get that. Hopefully it works out. That's what I'm rolling with. I actually do feel a little bit better about this slip than I did the bet of the day from yesterday's slip, prize picks wise, which is currently 4 for 4. We'll see if that holds up. Pacheco and Tua are currently going right now. That game's on Peacock. Like, I wonder how many people are watching that game right now. But if you didn't want to run out those prop bets, you could run out really these top ones like Williams for under fantasy score, Reed under fantasy score. You know, that's up to you guys. I do find it interesting that right now we're not getting any fantasy score prop bets. So that's kind of interesting there. So just remind you guys to give a like and subscribe to the channel. It's going to help out a lot. If you guys are going to use that underdog bet slip and you guys have never used underdog before, use the promo code 905. That's just going to help out the channel a little bit. But that is going to be all for today's video, guys. Thank you for watching. Make sure to give a like and subscribe, though. It really does help out the channel. Hit the notification bell as well. If you guys want access to the tools that you saw in this video, head on over to 905sports.com. They're available for just $10 a month. Let's have a good slate. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.